At the end of the day, only one of these dojos can be crowned grand champion. Welcome to the 51st annual All Valley Under 18 Karate Tournament. It's karate time.
Johnny and Daniel decide to bring their dojo teams together with the aim of defeating Cobra Kai at the Valley Tournament. But the difference in their karate styles appears to be a stumbling block for all parties involved. Due to the loss Cobra Kai suffered, Kreese loses half of his students and has a hard time trying to bring Robbie in. So he pays Terry Silver a visit, intending to convince him to come back. But Terry refuses. During training at the LaRusso's, Daniel and Johnny decide to teach their dojo teams separately for a change. But it still fails. As Miguel and Johnny walk home, Miguel tries to convince Johnny to settle his differences with Daniel, while Sam does the same with her dad. Later that night, Daniel goes over to Johnny's to see if they can work together, but that too fails. However, after seeing their students work together at the Miyagi-Do dojo, the two senseis finally come to an agreement. While Robbie finally decides to join Cobra Kai and teach them Miyagi-Do karate to help defeat the Miyagi-Do and Engelfang students in the All Valley Tournament. Trying to see each other's perspectives, Daniel and Johnny agree to train each other in order to bridge the difference in their fighting styles. Meanwhile, Amanda, Sam's mom, shows up at Tori's workplace to warn her against picking fights with her daughter, but inadvertently causes her to lose her job. At West Valley Middle School, Kenny, the new student at school, gets picked on by Anthony LaRusso and his friends. At Miyagi-Do's, Johnny finds it hard to learn the Miyagi-Do karate due to his offensive style of fighting, but he gets it at some point. The next morning, it's Daniel's turn, and Johnny takes him to an abandoned construction site to learn Eagle-Fang karate. After Kreese warns Amanda to leave Tori alone, she learns that Tori is alone with a sick mother and an absent father, and she feels guilty. She tries to make amends by sending Tori a bag of groceries, but it only seems to make things worse. Meanwhile, Kenny visits his brother, Sean, in prison and tells him about having a hard time at school. In turn, Sean tells him he knows someone who can help him with that. Finally, able to settle the fighting style barrier between them, Daniel and Johnny switch their students, sending Eagle-Fang to Miyagi-Do and vice versa. Kenny then finds Robbie at Cobra Kai and tells him that Sean sent him. To become part of them, he has to go through a test. So Kreese puts him through one, which Kenny fails. Eventually, Kreese sends Kenny away, citing his cowardice as a reason. Meanwhile, Danny and Johnny are having a whole new experience trying to teach the kids different fighting styles to what they're used to. Daniel asks Johnny's students to catch fish with their hands, but they all fail. Johnny, on the other hand, takes Daniel's students to a rooftop, asking them to jump over to the next one, but none of them agree to. But eventually, Sam gets over her fear and makes the jump. Later that day, Robbie goes to Kenny's house and teaches him a few moves to defend himself. The next day, Kenny returns to Cobra Kai and gets accepted, after passing the test this time. Meanwhile, at the Miyagi-Do dojo, Miguel finally succeeds in catching a fish. Johnny is jealous of the relationship Daniel is building with Miguel, so he takes it out on Daniel's students during training. Back at Cobra Kai, Terry agrees to Kreese's proposal and is introduced as a second sensei to help prepare the students for the tournament. While Miguel spends his time with Daniel fixing his mom's car, Johnny spends his time with Carmen, Miguel's mom, thinking of how to break the news of their relationship to Miguel. Meanwhile, Amanda takes Sam to a birthday party where she meets Tori, working as a cosplayer. As expected, the two drag out their beef. Later that evening, Johnny invites Miguel over for dinner, hoping to let him know about his relationship with his mom. But Miguel declines because he's already had dinner with the LaRussos. Later, while at a movie, Hawk tries to pick on Kenny, but Robbie steps in, and it almost becomes a squad fight, which Miguel manages to avoid by humiliating Cobra Kai with a prank. The next morning, Terry stops Kreese's retaliation plan, comes up with a new plan, and they pay Miyagi-Do a visit. Daniel is annoyed by Terry Silver's presence and ends up sending him out of his dojo, despite Terry's apologies. Afterward, Terry instructs his students not to pick a fight with the Miyagi-Do students until the tournament. Later that night, Daniel lets Johnny in on his history with Terry and decides to preside over training to make the students better. Johnny doesn't like the idea, so they agree to duel it out, with the winner taking over the training of all their students. The students aren't in support of the fight, but they can't change their sensei's minds either. Back at Cobra Kai, Tori and Robbie ignore Terry's instructions and cook up a plan to get back at the Miyagi-Do by shaving off Hawk's hair. Later that night, the fight between Daniel and Johnny starts at the Okinawa sparring deck, but it ends in a tie. Just then, Hawk walks in, revealing the damage Cobra Kai did to his appearance. Johnny and Sam are in favor of retaliation, but Daniel and Miguel think otherwise. With their difference soaring back up to the surface, all parties decide to go their separate ways. The All-Valley Tournament Board holds a meeting ahead of the tournament and comes up with a bunch of new rules and changes that put the Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang at a disadvantage, while Cobra Kai gets the upper hand. As a result, Eagle Fang searches for a female karate champ, while Miyagi-Do amps up their training. Tori then visits Amanda, asking for her help to get back into school, but Sam shows up and doesn't like the idea of Tori sitting in their home. Shortly after that, Sam goes to see her best friend, Aisha, who has moved with her family to Santa Barbara, with Aisha helping her to regain her courage after Cobra Kai hijacks Piper, a female potential student who was Johnny's initial find. Forced to find another female champ, he goes to a debate competition and finds a new girl for him to train for the tournament. At the Miyagi-Do dojo, Hawk walks into an active training session, asking to be let back on the team, and he's accepted. The next day at school, Tori appears a little shaken by the looks she gets from other students. Just then, Sam walks up to her, tells her she's no longer scared, and threatens to kick her ass if Tori ever comes at her again. At West Valley Middle School, Kenny faces another episode of bullying as Anthony takes his clothes away from the locker room after practice. After Miguel finds Johnny's hairband in his mom's room, Johnny and Carmen finally decide to come clean with him. Meanwhile, Daniel stumbles upon the clothes Anthony took from Kenny. When Anthony's quizzed about it, he lies that he's been bullied by a Cobra Kai student, prompting Daniel to offer him karate lessons. But Anthony registers no interest. Tired of her father's insistence on one fighting style, Sam shows up at Eagle Fang, willing to learn their fighting style as well. Back at West Valley Middle School, Anthony tries to apologize to Kenny, who turns down his apology and sparks a fight. The students are caught during the fight, and the LaRusso parents are summoned to school. There, they learn that their son is going to be suspended because he's been bullying Kenny. At Cobra Kai, Kreese tells Terry how displeased he is with his attempts at taking over his students, and proceeds to put him back in his place by dredging up past memories. After Terry falls back in line, Raymond, aka Stingray, shows up at the dojo, hoping to rejoin Cobra Kai. But Kreese harshly turns him away. Intent on squaring up to Terry and his annoying antics, Johnny gets lured to the Cobra Kai's old dojo, where Terry springs a surprise attack on him while Kreese watches. However, as the fight gets heated, Kreese commands Terry to stand down. Meanwhile, at the prom after party, Sam and Miguel get into a fight with Tori and Robbie, which ends with Miguel annoyed at Sam for ruining the night. Afterward, he takes Sam back home and heads over to Johnny's house. On getting there, he finds his sensei on the floor, heavily drunk, and helps him up. However, just when Miguel thinks he's having a moment with Johnny, Johnny calls him Robbie, which saddens Miguel. Back at the LaRussos, Daniel tries to talk to Anthony. Part of Anthony's grounding rules was to have no screen time, but Daniel finds Anthony with a smart device anyway. In anger, he smashes it and leaves the room. Later that night, Anthony apologizes to his parents and expresses remorse for bullying Kenny. At Cobra Kai's old dojo, Terry heavily beats Stingray for asking for a return to Cobra Kai. It's the start of the famous All-Valley tournament. All participating teams are introduced at the start, and the senseis give their respective students pep talks before the fight. At the start of the tournament, Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang take the lead respectively, but soon enough, Cobra Kai catches up and overtakes them. After the male and female division qualifiers, those who go through from each team head for the quarterfinals. During the quarterfinals, Daniel notices that Cobra Kai demonstrates a surprising knowledge of his team's moves and are able to counter their attacks. So he walks up to Robbie asking him if he really wanted to win so bad that he taught Cobra Kai Miyagi-Do secrets. But Robbie replies that he'd do anything it takes to become a champion. In Sam's next fight, she ditches her father's defensive technique, quite to her father's displeasure, for Johnny's offensive style. After watching herself fall back a little during the semifinals, Robbie tries to go easy on Kenny, but dispatches the boy quickly after Kreese incites him. On the other hand, Miguel takes on Hawk, but ends up sustaining an injury that halts the fight. It turns out Miguel hasn't sustained a serious injury, and he's given 30 minutes to recover. However, he doesn't return to the fight, and Hawk automatically progresses to the finals against Robbie. In the locker room, while Kenny fumes in his defeat, Anthony tries to apologize, but Kenny beats him up. Back at the fight ground, the stakes become tighter as Cobra Kai have to win one match to clinch the grand title, while Miyagi-Do has to win 2. Daniel finally agreeing that his fighting style isn't enough, lets Hawk go on the offensive. Consequently, Hawk emerges winner of the male category. Daniel and Johnny make up and support Sam together in the female division. As a result, Sam uses both Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang techniques. After a nasty elbow blow to the eye, Sam loses the fight to Tori and is distraught. Cobra Kai takes the title of Grand Champion, and the Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang teams are heartbroken. Meanwhile, Miguel is nowhere to be found. Later that day, Tori discovers that Terry paid off the official that refereed her fight with Sam. Robbie then follows his dad, Johnny, to Cobra Kai's old dojo, and they reconcile. At Terry's house, Kreese gets arrested, and it's revealed that Terry got Stingray to falsely accuse Kreese for the beating he received in return for getting back into Cobra Kai. Upon getting home, Johnny and Carmen find out through a letter that Miguel's gone in search of his biological father. The next morning at Mr. Miyagi's grave, Daniel seeks help from an old friend to bring an end to Cobra Kai.